first section there is federal. You see 148,000. Those are those American Rescue Funds that we've been talking about. Next section is state funds, obviously big ones being liquid fuels. Continuing on, you would go to page 7. The thing I wanted to point out here is in that bottom section, it'll say other financing sources. You'll see a pretty large number that says proceeds of general long-term debt, 316,000. That's your refinance. So even though the cash comes in from the new debt and goes out to pay the old debt, you're required to essentially gross up that activity. So this is the proceeds from the new debt. And then when we go a couple pages further, we'll see a big chunk of debt paid off in relation to that refinance. So here you'll see at the bottom of page 7 is total revenues. Each column there you'll see across how they came out for the year. Page 8 starts the expense section. Nothing really too different to note here. I would pay attention to the public safety section. That's just being the fire funds historically have been out of the general fund. Now with the new fire tax, they're being paid out of that special revenue column. So that's where that 104 kind of shifted some of that in the 2021 year. Continuing on to page 9, at the top of the page is Public Works, the Highways and Streets Department. Some decrease in expenses here, some differences with road repair and maintenance between 2020 and 2021, as well as, some change with the Public Works Department and staffing there. Page 10, continuing, this is where you'll see that debt service section. That's the second section there. You'll see a large amount saying debt principal payoff of 342. Again, that's because of the refinance, so that's not that you were just, paying that much of principal out of pocket. You received proceeds to do so. So towards the bottom of this page then, you'll see total expenditures, again, showing each column there as they come out for the year. And then the last line there saying excess or deficit of revenues. In this case, you would see excess this year. So that basically means net income within each individual fund. So you'll see all the net incomes for the year by fund. I will point out here the final column, well, second to last column there, it says fiduciary funds. That has to do with your pension plan. So those aren't, as you know, available funds to be spent, but they are required to be reported within this report. So this year, net income, your excess of revenues over expenses, it was up from 2020. I'm sure that's not a surprise. Increased taxes. The American Rescue Plan funds are still sitting there. They haven't been utilized yet, so that's part of the reason. And some of the decrease there in the Public Works Department. So those would be the biggest areas causing that fluctuation between years. The next page, page 11, is the debt statement. So this is where you kind of see what I was talking about with the refinance. There at the top says general obligation. Note there's 2 of them. The first one being the one that was paid off this year. The second one being the new debt that was acquired. There you can see the balances as of year end. And then this also presents that one equipment lease that you are holding as well. Page 12, this is actually, you'll see blank this year. That just has to do with statement of capital expenditures. So if you went and bought a new truck, that would go on here. Anything that's big, capital in nature, nothing really was going on here in 2021. I will say a difference that you might see between your township versus another could be in the beginning of the financial statements when we were looking at that balance sheet. There is a column that says general fixed asset account group. If you were capitalizing assets and depreciating them, that's where you would see that reporting of such. DCD doesn't seem to have an issue with not reporting that. There are other smaller townships that I've audited historically who also choose to not, track that purpose of depreciation. So this is not necessarily abnormal, just pointing it out that you could still obviously be purchasing trucks, you're just not depreciating them over the life of the asset. And then the last page, page 13, this is just a reconciliation. Basically what I mentioned at the very beginning of a couple of those funds that, well, not a couple, just one, the Park and Rec Fund that went from capital projects to that special revenue column. This is just a reconciliation that was attached to provide the DCD so that they could actually see those numbers and how they got reported upon. The other thing that I wanted to point out is we did issue a required communication letter that would have been distributed with all of the final copies of the audit. That's a letter that is essentially a letter to the board. It is, as stated, a required communication. Gives you information how the audit went, but overall, if you would read through that, you would find that the audit went very well. We only had a handful of proposed correcting journal entries, and in reality, they were more reclassification type in nature, so there was nothing significant. And you would see that when reading the letter. It says, that none of these adjustments had significant effects on the township's monthly financial reporting process. So, job well done there. I know the team out there has done a lot to try to keep everything in order and have good financial records for reporting, and it seems that that is what they're providing to you, so you're getting good information on a monthly basis. That letter will also tell you that we did issue a separate management letter. I'm not going to go through the detail of that today, just because I feel like, as stated, it's a management letter that's more for for you as the board, certainly, to read that, as well as management. But there's nothing of significant deficiency in nature there. So we usually classify an item as being a deficiency, or we can potentially go through an audit and say, hey, these are just some suggestions we have for potential improvement. And that's what you'll find in the letter. They are simply suggestions. I'll give you a vague idea of what those are, but one of them just had to do with the receipts process, and it was saying, hey, good job in what you're doing, but here's an extra step that might help give you another check and balance. That was a suggestion that was made and implemented immediately by the team there at the township. And the other one had to do with some documentation that's being received for bills that get split, where the township's paying a portion of that bill. Basically, the idea is that it's sometimes challenging for the township to get that supporting documentation from the borough, and it's just a reminder to make sure that maybe there's something that gets spelled out in an agreement that that's part of a requirement, but it was just something to kind of push along the process to make sure that the documentation is getting submitted so that the township's not chasing down somebody to provide support for the bill that you're being asked to pay. The other couple items in that letter were ones that you've seen in history. They actually stem from your prior auditors. They were ones that we reviewed with Denise and Brett at the time, and they were able to clarify with us any areas that have been updated or not. It has to do with policies and procedures and the IT type, the information technology type items. So essentially, my understanding is most of those are already kind of in the works, being worked upon. So again, nothing of great concern, just kind of a, hey, here's an area to keep your focus on, and suggestions for improvement. I think, yep, that is actually all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Any questions?
I got a comment. I read the reports. I thought you did a nice job on the reports, and I want to compliment the staff on the work that they did to help you complete the reports.
Yes, certainly. I would definitely, I was certainly getting there, and I was hoping, to get that chance here to thank them all as well. Yes, very, very good job. I know Denise and Brett and Amy, all of them are involved in this process. I know it was a team effort, and we really enjoyed working with all of you, and this report goes to show you that, you know, the books are being kept in order. I know they're making great strides to, you know, kind of clean things up to make them a more simplified and clear reporting, and I think that's great. So, and thank you to the board also for the opportunity to serve as your auditors. You know, should anybody have any question at any given point, I'm always happy to answer those and address those. And Brett does have my contact information, should you find a question, you know, after we leave the meeting today. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the gallery out there? None? Okay, well, thank you for doing the Zoom thing. Okay. Next up, we have Administrative Office Renovation by Mr. Cervello.
Thank you. Well, I finished the work on the proposal to move the offices from the temporary space back to this building, and I've provided copies to the board. It's dated today, and the proposal is to install a demountable wall private office and new furnishings, both for the private office as well as for Amy and Brett, the staff, and to provide better security in terms of locked files, locked desks. We are going to install an additional key lock or button, keypad type lock, cipher lock, on the rear door of the office space, and a closer. And we need to also put a closer on the main door to the office. That way it ensures that the door closes each time. That's covered in here. The first part is an explanation. The first page, second page is a cost breakdown. Total cost, I've included some contingency of $1,000, permit fees. I'll just go down through these costs. The furnishings, including the demountable office installed, is $21,567.06. There is an installation of Cat 6 wire. There's 18 wires installed in the walls of the building. Includes this space as well as the office space. There was a quote gotten a couple months ago to install new data wiring in the building. And so that is 18 wires. And that total cost is $4,547.80. In order to put the offices in here, move the people into the office space next door here, we have to make some minor changes to the ductwork above the ceiling to provide proper airflow and air balancing for a private office as well as the open space. The system itself is adequate to handle the space, actually works well. We had to service last Friday. Other than dirty filters, the units are running well. So we have 2 heat pumps that serve this building, and they're performing well. So that's $1,329. And I talked earlier about the new door access control keypad on the rear door that opens into the office, and a couple closers to close. Closers are the devices at the top of the door that pull the door shut. And that's a new keypad there plus 2 closers. That's $1,721.10. I had an estimate for moving costs of $1,000. Window, I want to put a window in the main door out here, a glass window in the door with some letters stenciled on it. That way the staff can see people who are approaching the office, and the people approaching the office can see the staff in the office. I think it's kind of a security measure as well, but it's just better to be able to see who's coming. That is, I expect that to be something on the order of $1,000. Plus, we have to put in addition to that, part of that $1,000, we have to change the sign next to the entry door. We have to put a ADA type placard sign next to the door and change the identification to an office space. We have to change the sign at Route 550, the sign that indicates that it currently indicates the community center back, back this road. We'll have to change that sign and probably put something like municipal office or something there. There's a permit fee in here. I'm not sure how much the permit fee is yet. That's an estimate. I estimated it at $250, but I have to talk to code about that. The subtotal is $31,443.86. The contingency $1,000, so the total will be $32,914.96. There's attached, the quotes for the furnishings are attached. The actual three-dimensional drawing of the office space is included. There's a separate quote for the file cabinets. It's a better deal to get the file cabinets from Hahn than it is from Steelcase. There is a quote for, and also an application, new customer application from McCartney's, who is the Steelcase and Hahn dealer and a CoStar's participant. They're registered with CoStar's, as are the manufacturers. CoStar's is a state program for discounts on furnishings, all kinds of equipment. So I registered with them. We're registered with them now. There's a quote for the IT work, the installation of the Cat 6 wiring attached. There's a quote or proposal, depending on contractors. Some of them call it proposals, some of them call it quotes. But there's one for the mechanical system controls, or mechanical system ductwork changes included. And I just got this quote today from Builders Hardware, used to be Hoodco, for $1721.10 for the changes to the door hardware, the changes to the doors that we need to make. That's included here. Brochure about PSAT's information on purchasing through CoStar's, and that gives us an advantage of not having to bid for furniture. Threshold's at $11,800 under normal circumstances if you're not using CoStar's. If you use CoStar's, you don't need to apply. Is that correct, Amy? Is that correct? If you use CoStar's, then the threshold of 11.8 doesn't apply?
Correct.
Okay. And let's see here. And then I did two. That's the way they did it in the old days. Two sketches, quarter-inch scale sketches of the office space, private office, open office area, break area, kitchenette, restrooms are out here. This here is the main entrance right here of the office. This is the back door I was talking about. And so there's plenty of space for everything in here, plus a little bit of growth and filing space and things. So, and my notes are on there, and I have to stamp the drawings in order to submit it to code for review and approval and permitting. The only reason why I have to do any of that is because we're putting an office space in that has walls that are higher than 6 feet. If you put partitions in that are lower than 6 feet, there's no permitting requirement. So that's fine. This will code has already told me that if I'm willing to stamp the drawings, that they'll accept that as part of the submittal. So that's basically it. And are there any questions?
Yeah, Ron, I have a question.
Okay.
This McCartney's that you included here that has a grand total of $17,361.
Yes.
Is that included in this summary here somewhere, or is that,
That's that's the top.
that's part of the 21,000?
Yes, it is. The other part of that is the Hahn quote. There's a
So the
quote.
file cabinets and everything, this is the complete price?
That's right.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
knew there was different parts in
Yeah,
here.
let me show you that
Okay.
here as soon as I get it. Here, this one right here,
Yes,
that is the Hahn quote. So just in case anyone's interested, the CoStar's discount off of a state-approved list price for Hahn is 48%. The approved discount for Steelcase, and maybe
and
some
that's the
people.
brands of the wall system, correct?
The Steelcase, yes, that's the demountable walls, the desks, the chairs, the tables, That is the still case quote.
Okay.
And that quote is, like, I think you already said.
I just wanted to confirm that all these
Yeah.
were in here and this wasn't separate. 'cause I didn't see-
17,361.30.
Yeah, because I didn't see that number specifically on the list, but if
Right.
it's included in the 21, that's good.
And the CoStar's discount with still case ranges from 52% to 64%. So the state, with their purchasing power by volume, gets a pretty decent discount. I wish I could get that kind of discount personally, but that is it in a nutshell. And are there any questions? Any more questions?
Ron, did you set this up so that, like if somebody rents this meeting room or whatever, they can still use the kitchen? Is that still the plan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if we provide security on the rear door.
Yep.
That, we don't need that to do that, but, because there is a lock on that door. But what that does allow is to make sure the door is closed and make sure we have access from 2 points. So it is an advantage for the staff. And I think that's important. I
Well,
mean,
that's
it was
another
more
way out.
money than I had initially planned to spend because I didn't consider putting another keypad on the back door. But I think it's a good idea.
And staff was involved in all this, they've reviewed, and this is
From
adequate for
beginning
what
to end,
they're,
yep.
for what they want, or what they
Yep.
need.
And I appreciate their assistance in collating, putting things together, helping me get some copies and things like that. It was very helpful.
I have one quick question, just.
Sure.
The cabling you have lined up here by, what was that company? I just had it in my hand.
Mm-hmm. That was Expert Communications.
Yeah, right. We currently contract our IT services to the Port Matilda, or not Port Matilda, excuse me, the borough, is that right?
Yeah, and they provided
you-
the quote to the borough, who provided it to us.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to know
Yep.
if you'd talked to them about it as well.
Yeah, that's their preferred vendor, and they do a lot of work for the university
Yeah, that's
too.
fine. I have no doubt they're a stand-up company, I just
One
wanted to know if
thing-
you got their input.
One thing related to this is the sale of the projectors. And we have been waiting, and I know Amy, I even called them myself to see if they were still interested in purchasing them, because that is something that if we, get the money for the projectors that we're not gonna use, that would help offset some of this cost.
Yeah.
So,
$1,000.
we're trying to get in touch with them yet, and, hopefully they'll respond. I think Harris Township was one of the townships that
Yes.
wanted to buy one.
Yes.
And if we can't get a response from, the borough, perhaps we ought to go directly to Harris.
Yeah, because we already voted and approved to
To
sell
sell
them,
them.
right? So we just
Yep.
need to actually do it.
Well, they need to accept.
Yeah, I know, I'm just curious as to why they're not, because it was their offer to buy them in the first place. and-
Right. We're kind of puzzled. But that's it, and so, go ahead, sorry.
Just a quick question, just because I know the last meeting we talked about the main door coming into the building that lock has to be changed because it doesn't work and it needs to be ADA compliant.
Right.
Is that included in part of these costs?
That's
or
not
gonna be
included
a
in this
separate-
cost, because that is something we had to do even before I put this together.
Okay,
Because it failed, so we have to
yeah,
get a new one. And I think you have a price for that, right?
yes.
In fact, it's
We
ordered.
approved that.
It's ordered.
And it's, what, $1,500? 17?
Yeah, I knew it was expensive, so that's why I didn't think it was in this quote, but, okay.
Yeah, and that's an exterior keypad, so it's gotta be rated for that.
Yes, sir. In the back.
I'd just like to say thank you. 1 or 2 meetings ago, you volunteered to take on that project and add your expertise to it from the experience that you had. You've delivered on your promise, and I think that's respectable, and we appreciate it. As a businessman, there has to be some sense of cost savings involved in you doing it, whether that be a commission from a business, a consultant to do the same practice. And I think that is very palatable to the community and myself, and with much appreciation, I thank you.
I appreciate it.
Agreed, thank you. Ron, can I send you one, so thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the audience?
again, that can all be changed. If something changes that we need to use the space differently than the way you're designing it now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you're not constructing
Right,
walls.
not putting anything
Yeah, they can be,
permanent.
they're demountable, which means you put them up, you can take them down.
Okay, you can shift the space if you need to make one space bigger or
You
smaller.
can,
or
I mean, it might
wider.
take more panels or something, but
Okay.
they're reusable.
Yeah, it's not something you would do quickly. It's not, like, hey, well, let's change this for a day.
No, no,
But
no,
yeah,
I'm
you
just
can in the
saying down
future
road, if
modify.
The space needs to be changed for whatever
Mm-hmm.
reasons, that's part of what you were promoting with this system, is that
Right.
it can be changed.
Now, 30 years ago, demountable walls weren't really what they sounded like. Back then, you had, when you tore them out, you had more than just the work of dismantling them. You had to repair the space that they were sitting in too. So it was not quite as bad, but it's almost as bad as building a wall and tearing it down. Plus, they were a lot more expensive when they first started using them. So, and the other thing is, I did not need to put utilities into the walls. They do make these with raceways, so you can install outlets, you can put data outlets, power outlets, whatever, but you have to feed the wire, you have to feed the electricity or the data in through the raceways at the bottom. But just so happens that we have outlets, plenty of outlets in there, and the baseboard heaters all seem to fall into the right place, and it all worked out pretty well, which makes it a lot less expensive.
So what do we need on this, Mr. Chair? Do we need a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion to go forward with this, get it submitted to code, order whatever we need to order.
And I want to add one thing. May 1st, all CoStars, I think, all CoStar related manufacturers, they're going to increase the prices May 1st. Now, that doesn't actually take effect till the 15th of May, but we would like to get, I'd like to get the furniture on order. That's where that's where we would suffer, and it probably is more likely to be a 10% increase. So, talking about $21,000 worth of furniture, and I'd like to avoid the increase and get it ordered. So, it takes some time to get purchase orders prepared.
So we could use this summary as our motion. We're basically voting on,
Yeah.
on this
I think
project
so.
as submitted.
I think it's a safe proposal, cost proposal.
Okay. I move that we approve the proposal to modify the community center to move the offices for a total cost of $32,914.96.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Clark seconds. Motion and second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm gonna call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion approved. Thank you, Ron. That was an excellent presentation and excellent work.
Thank you.
I think it'll be really nice for everybody.
One more thing I would like to add.
Sure.
I will supervise and manage this process through to the completion, including the move. I just want everybody to know that. I'll stay on top of it.
Thank you. All right, on to action items. Approve a roadmaster's job description and permission to advertise for position. Ron, I know you've been on top of this
Well,
one.
Chuck
too.
and I both worked on it,
Oh, that's right.
reviewing the job description. I took the best, we took the best from both the original job description, or the latest one, and the draft proposed revisions, and put that together. And I think we came up with a good job description for the roadmaster. Brett actually helped quite a bit to review both documents, to review the combined documents for removing any redundancies there might have been, because when you're trying to create a new one from an old one, sometimes you have things stated more than once. And I think he actually put together the final version, the final document, which I really appreciated. So, and I think it's a good description. I think it captures everything we need, and it's pretty up to date.
Do I hear a motion to go forward with that?
I'll move that we approve the job description for Roadmaster as submitted.
Bob made a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Chuck seconds. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion approved.
Because I didn't
Sorry.
put it in the motion, I think we have to have a second motion to advertise now.
Yeah, probably should do that.
Yeah, so I'll move that we advertise for the Halfmoon Township Roadmaster position following our township advertising guidelines for employment.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Ron seconds. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion approved. All right, number 2. Selection of interview process and candidates for Public Works labor position. Okay, we
This
don't,
is for the full-time position,
Yep.
correct?
that is
Yep.
correct.
This is the Public Works laborer
There
position.
are, well,
There were
maybe-
52 applications. I reviewed them all. I volunteered to review them all. I narrowed it down based on experience. And I looked at education, I looked at experience, I looked at, there's, you know, the span of time from when a person graduates from high school to when they start working. I mean, I looked at it from every angle. And I screened them based on that and came up with what I think are 11 or 12 of the best candidates out of 52. I think, my opinion, I'd like to hear other opinions on the board, but my opinion is I think we need to, if we're gonna go ahead with interview process, I think we ought to contact, you know, if we've got 11 potential candidates, we ought to consider have staff contact all of them to see if they're still interested.
I have a question.
Yes.
Is this the same group of candidates that we reviewed many months ago?
I wouldn't have known that.
This was candidates from the first posting and candidates from the second posting.
Candidates
Yeah,
from
we-
this first posting, no, nothing really.
We re-advertised in January, February, was it? I don't remember.
Of this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was January.
I just wondered, okay, if it was, because from the first group, that would have been many months, and I just
Right.
wondered how relevant some of that would still be.
I guess what I'd like to recommend to the board is that we have a executive session to, you know, maybe screen the candidates, because you guys haven't.
Yeah, we
the
need to
ones
see.
that
Well,
I-
well, we
Yeah,
looked at
we
the
need
to
first
think
batch,
of-
I don't know that we haven't seen the second
Yeah,
batch.
yeah, so,
Which
you know, we could do that maybe even in an executive session.
Yeah, I'm
But I
fine
think
with that.
as far as interviewing, we're gonna have to do that in an executive session. Because it's a, you know,
I think it would be good to look through them and decide which ones we wanna.
well, that's
contact
right,
for
and
an
I'd like to
interview.
get some
Because
consensus
I know
on.
Chuck had a lot of comments on the first group batch that we looked
Yeah,
at.
Yeah, I think we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves and talk about interviewing necessarily before we all get together on which candidates we would like to
Right.
bring in for an interview.
and I'd like you to
So-
be able to see them,
Yeah, obviously.
see what I picked. It's a difficult process, going through that many applications, but it's something we have to do. And I thought I would maybe save some time for everybody there's some that are obvious, you know,
That they were just putting in for, yeah, because I know that's what we ran into in the first batch. A lot of them really weren't serious. They were just trying to fill an obligation to search.
Mhm.
and I think there's a lot of things to discuss, including, you know, potential wage amount, you know, in terms of market, because things have changed a lot even in a few months. And I'm concerned about that. I think one of the problems with the last process or the last attempt to you know, provide offers was that maybe it might have been the rates. I don't know. That's a lot of stuff
Yeah,
to discuss.
something we can talk about.
That's my
I mean,
point.
It all depends on experience, and, I mean, you have to have a range, because, you know, if you get somebody who's young and enthusiastic but doesn't have a lot of experience.
Yeah, the CDL is important, and that's
Yeah.
getting harder to.
I
more-
didn't think that was a requirement of the I guess not of the part-time, but it is a requirement for the, this one, for the
Yep.
public
The
works?
full-time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's required. Although one of the postings, the old posting, I think, had preferred, but I think the actual job description says you either have one or are able to obtain one within 6 months.
I think that was it.
So,
Okay.
and that's significant.
So what's the board's schedule like to get together as an executive session to review potential employees?
You guys name a date and I'll make it work. I mean, within reason.
I think we need to move out fairly quickly.
Yeah,
because we need to
obviously,
get
but I mean,
someone
if
on
you wanna
board.
set something up next week, although actually, next week might be tough. But, you know, I'll try to be as flexible as I can.
About
is
next
what I'm
Wednesday or Thursday evening?
saying. Wednesday's a no.
That's May 4th.
I could do Thursday.
Could do Thursday.
I could do Thursday.
Chuck, what's your schedule?
There again, name the time,
You'll make it
Thursday
work.
would work for me.
maybe.
Looks good.
All right, well then let's have an executive session to review
Here.
potential employees here
What
Okay.
time?
at, like at 7 o'clock.
Works.
If that works for everybody.
Unless you guys wanna do 6. But I know you
I
have
would tell you
difficulty
6,
getting here
but
at 6
I know what's gonna
sometimes, so.
happen, so
Okay, so it's 5th at 7.
it's Thursday. 7 PM. Okay. All right. Any more discussion on job interviews? All right, moving on. Annual CPI adjustment for open space program preservation leases. Amy, do you want to fill the board in on that, or?
Did you say he wanted to say something? Well, each year, the open space leases, we calculate a CPI increase for the time period between April to March of this year, and that is an increase of, well, the increase was 5.217, so that will increase the rate per acre to $38.20.
What was the previous rate? 30,
30,
well, 36.31, right?
yes. It's blurry to me looking that close to it. And that's per the ordinance that we do this
Right.
each year.
Like to make it an official motion?
Yeah, this is something we don't even really have a choice to do because it's in the contracts, correct?
Is it
Yeah.
motion required?
I don't know that it is, but it'd probably be a good idea,
Yeah, I would cover our butt.
since we're spending money.
Okay.
Your motion,
I'll motion that we approve the annual CPI adjustment for open space program preservation leases, whether we concur with it.
okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Patty seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Okay, discussion items. Job description for manager.
I was working on a revision to job description as well as the ordinance, as well as the personnel manual. And I would like to, well, I need a little bit more time to look at that, but would like to be able to present it, my ideas, my comments. I could do that next week, if you want to do that next Thursday.
I wouldn't mind having a look at the draft for the manager description.
Right.
Yeah.
That way I would get something prepared and you can take a look at it
Yeah,
then.
I've read over what's in the Dropbox already too, so
Is that the current one?
I think we should have that discussion at the same time we're all together next week.
Well, that's,
Yeah, like you said.
that gives me enough time to get it ready for that, so, now that I'm through the proposal. That took about 50 hours.
Well, we do need to keep in mind that we have to agree as a group on
Sure.
job descriptions, things like
Absolutely.
that. I mean, the one you brought forward here is good, but as you said, it was what was pretty much complete in the Dropbox. I mean, there were changes, but you know,
Wait, let me see that, Bob.
this is the one that you proposed, and I had some notes scribbled on it, but it might not have been the right current one. But
I haven't proposed anything yet for manager.
no. I wasn't talking about manager.
Oh,
This is the
roadmaster.
roadmaster
Oh,
job. What I
okay.
was saying is I saw this. This was a incomplete document, but it was in the Dropbox. So I've been reading all those documents in there. We've even got some that you can kind of compare and contrast to other municipalities and how they have those written. And I've been thumbing through those, so I'm excited to get together and talk about this and get together on a job description, because that, again, like we just advertised for the roadmaster position, that should be our number one priority, is hiring another manager, so we can get things back to normal on the level they were, so, but yeah, anyway, that's all I have to say.
Okay.
All right. Emergency services. I guess that's, Bob and Ron.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll,
Yeah, shoot.
I wrote a little thing and then I can elaborate, but, Ron and I met with the Port Matilda Fire Chief, John Witherite, on Tuesday evening, and the rest of the Port Matilda Fire Department officers, to discuss the financial situation. Currently, 100% of their taxpayer funding makes up their annual operating budget, leaving them without a capital budget. Currently, they're in immediate need of approximately $85,000 for the purchase of fireside capital equipment, which is life-saving equipment. For decades, the Port Matilda Fire Company has been without a capital budget. What they've been doing, as long as I've been involved, for capital purchases is basically going to the municipalities that they cover, which is the Upper Bald Eagle, Half Moon Valley Cog area. It's the Halfmoon Township, Taylor Township, Port Matilda Borough, Worth Township, and Houston. Basically, they go to the Port Matilda Fire Company would come to the COG meetings over there with their hat in their hand and beg for money. That was how they managed their capital budget for as long as I know, and that's no way to run an organization. So I have ideas of how to get them funded for that $85,000. Again, we are part of a 5-municipality conglomerate that they cover, so I'm not at all proposing that we would pony up the full $85,000. I'm saying we would pay our percentage, which we have a formula worked out that's based off of how we break out the cost for the workman's comp fund, I believe it is. Right, Brett? Yeah. It would be 34%, or about $23,000 that we would be giving them. Again, this is my idea, out of our ARPA funds, which would not be all the money they need, but it is a considerable amount. And again, they need pieces of equipment that are life-saving pieces of equipment, as well as pieces of equipment that protect them. And we are asking these guys to run into burning buildings on a volunteer basis for free. So I think we should try and get them as funded and equipped as we possibly can. Besides that, they have, obviously, as I touched, there is no capital purchase budget of any sort And that needs to get corrected. We need to figure out how to correct that. That's that's like the next step. Because the third step in their financial problems is they need a new fire truck. One of their pumper engine right now, that they bought 4 years ago used, is falling apart. It's in really, really rough shape. What was it? They're usually between 150% and 200% of the maintenance budget on that truck, and it's just not going to make it too much longer. I have been in talks with a charitable organization who would be willing to fund at least partially this fire truck, but we would have to show financial sustainability of the fire company before they would be willing to offer any money toward a fire truck. So it's kind of a 3-component. You have to fix this part to fix that part to then get this, and then you have a new fire truck that you could potentially have very little or no payments for, because a charitable organization just gave you that because we were good enough to straighten out their finances and get them viable. So that's where it is with that. I've invited John Witherite, the Port Matilda Fire Chief, to come to our next meeting. It's a workshop. I understand it's supposed to be our workshop, but I think it's a good time to get him in the room so we can kind of have a more casual conversation about what we need to do to make them viable. And I don't know, I'll turn it over to you, Ron, if you have anything to add.
I do. I went to that meeting Tuesday, and one of the things I noticed that John Witherite, who's the chief, and his associates in the fire company have been trying to do is actually put together a budget.
Yes.
I saw some semblance of a budget in terms of operating as well as capital expenses. I saw a number of about $250,000 a year, operating and capital.
That's what would be, make
This-
them solvent,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Now, in that, we and this has been my point with regard to the fire company for Port Matilda for some time. What I actually want to see is total income sources and total expenditures or total requirements. What we need to spend money on, what they need to spend money on. Now, one of the things that struck me in the meeting was that we talked about the income sources from a municipal standpoint, from the municipalities and from taxes. And first of all, in terms of the money we give to Port Matilda as well as Warriors Mark, for that matter, we have a millage that we split between Port Matilda and Warriors Mark. I think the millage is
1.7.
it's 47,742, 0.595 mils. Is that correct, Brett?
0.595 mils is what the contract states you have to pay Port
Right.
Matilda for services, yes.
And we also give them additional funds, and probably out of the general budget, as far as I can tell. Is that
It's
correct?
still out of the fire.
Is it out of fire?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the total for this year, 2022, to Port Matilda will be $87,431. That includes millage plus, well, I guess, is it all out of the millage?
It's all out of the 1.7
1.7.
tax mill.
Mhm.
What it is 1.7 is the total tax mill period. And then 0.595 is guaranteed to Port Matilda, and 0.255 is guaranteed to Warriors Mark. The rest comes through in either equipment requests, or currently there is a Port Matilda truck loan payment
Okay.
for the next few years.
And that happens to be the engine rescue.
I believe so.
The Spartan.
I'm not 100% sure,
Yeah,
but I
that's for the
believe.
truck that's falling apart.
Right. We're making payments on it. Now, the other thing is, I wanted to point out, in terms of who pays for this, who pays Port Matilda, or who gives them money, There are 5 municipalities. We're one of them. So I'll just go down this line. This is just the Port Matilda Fire to the .595 mils. We pay 40, our millage is .595 that we're required to pay. So that's 47,742. Houston provides, now, this is your spreadsheet, right?
That would not be what Houston provides. That would be if they would provide the five.
If they, okay, do we have actuals?
I do not.
Okay. So if they were to provide what they're contracted to provide?
That's what we're contracted to provide. Each municipality is different.
Okay, so these figures here for Houston, Worth, Port Matilda, and
Those are purely based on our contract and no one else's.
okay, but my point is that we currently provide a significant share, I mean, I don't know, like, use terms like lion's share, but in my opinion, a disproportionate amount of money compared to the other municipalities. What I'm concerned about is that, you know, everybody's house, everyone's house, your house is as important as mine, and vice versa, and theirs. And, you know, the other thing is insurance, homeowners' insurance rates depend on the viability of having fire protection. So our premiums are based on that. In fact, the insurance companies rate the fire companies and use that in determining their premiums, their premium charges. So there's a lot that goes into, you know, determining how much it costs us. And there was one discussion point that kind of concerned me was when it came to private fundraising. And I am concerned about not including that in the total income. I can understand that that's not a guaranteed source of income, but it is a source of income that I think needs to be considered in some manner. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. I just would like to take a closer look at this. They provide a lot of information on Tuesday. But I think, you know, one thing that struck me is the Port Matilda Fire Company's the people running the fire company currently are trying to put together a meaningful budget where everybody can understand exactly what their costs are, what their income sources are, and, you know, that's important. It's something that I have asked for, and I think they're doing their best to provide that. And I think it's gonna take some time before they, you know, kind of finalize their figures and everything. But it looks like $250,000 a year budget for capital and operating expenses, that's a significant amount of money. I would like to see more public support, you know, fund membership drives, more involvement in helping, you know, get private funding for the fire company as well. I think that's important. I think volunteerism is important too. So,
Okay, so are there any actions then we need to take? You're just saying there's more information coming and
Yeah,
we're gonna talk to
we're gonna
John,
have
and
a
so this is just
discussion.
getting
yeah,
us down.
yeah, this is just a discussion.
I do want to speak to one thing really quick, though, about the private fundraising part. The problem we have with the private fundraising and trying to report that in your budgeting numbers is because it can be wildly inconsistent from year to year. And if we're asking them to try and increase their fundraising efforts, I think we're asking them too much, because these are guys that are already dedicating pretty much their entire lives to being firefighters. You know, these are guys that also have full-time jobs. I was talking to the assistant fire chief outside the building Tuesday night, just chatting while he was waiting for his wife to come pick him up. And he described to me what his week is like often. And it's usually, and this is a week without any calls, without any fires or emergencies to respond to. He will often put in more than between his full-time job and the fire company and training. He often will clock between 80 and 89 hour weeks. I mean, we're already asking these guys to pretty much spend every waking moment working. And then we're gonna ask them to go knock on doors and more. It's like, it's, these guys should be allowed to concentrate on fighting fires. Now, that doesn't mean the community can't get together and try to do private fundraising and things like that too, but the difficulty that we've seen over the years is you can get that kind of enthusiasm in the community, and it might hold for a year or 2 years or 3 years, but eventually the wind goes out of the sails, and then those numbers, those volunteers start to go down. So that's why they're very reluctant to put the fundraising money into a budget, because can't always count on
Well,
it, so.
in 5 years, Bob, in 5 years, that private fundraising amounted to $365,000. In 5 years. That's $72,000 a year. Whether you do it, whether it's, they're getting it $72,000 a year, or getting 20 one year and 100 the next year, that's a lot of money. And I would, the last thing I would ask the members of that fire company to do is step up their fundraising on their own. What I did propose in Tuesday's meeting is that I'm willing to work hard to get volunteers, to get a committee together, to get volunteers to go door to door in every municipality, and to get live online, to approach the citizens and tell them, explain to them what the requirements are and how dire the situation is. I would not expect them, I couldn't even ask them to do something like increase their own efforts to, raise private money and to do fundraisers. Because you're right, they are busy. You okay?
Yeah.
They are busy, and they should be focused on what a fire company does primarily, and not have to worry about that stuff.
So
I agree
guess
with you.
at this point, Bob, are you gonna ask Mr. Witherite to come to our next work session?
Yeah, I spoke to him this afternoon,
Okay.
as a matter of fact.
He's
He and
coming
I-
to the work session?
Yeah, he and I talk like every couple of days.
Okay.
All right, well, that sounds good. Anybody else?
That was our emergency services segment, right?
Well,
Yep.
Yeah.
the only other aspect is the EMS service.
Yeah, and I don't have anything to discuss about with them other than the fact that, yeah, they need money too. So
But
return your donation cards and your membership cards to them when you get them, please. I do have plans to, in the future, try to figure something out with them as far as funding too, but there's only so many hours in the day, so right now I'm concentrating on the fire department.
Okay. Next up, department reports. Anybody have anything about the P&L general fund or the balance sheet?
Looked good.
Yeah, there's nothing out of the ordinary.
Happy? Okay, supervisors reports. Anybody to have anything to add for the supervisors reports?
I have a couple. This morning, or maybe it was yesterday morning, again, my days were running together. I attended the Solar Power Purchasing Agreement Working Group. This is just for a little background, we've been pursuing joining a multi-entity electric generation contract for green energy on a grand scale. 15 entities, including State College Area School District, the Center County offices, many of the local municipalities, including ourselves. We're not in any binding agreement right now, but we are researching what it would take to go into a long-term solar power purchasing agreement. We're currently working with with consultant Project Green Sky in the data collection phase, and we're being asked to make a non-binding decision on how much of our energy we'd like to purchase through the agreement once we reach the contractual stage. I've invited Joe, and if you're watching, Joe, I apologize, Viglione, I think I did that right. I've also invited him to our May 12th meeting to present to the board the status of the project and where it's headed, and then to answer any questions you may have. I'm not trying to pile up that meeting. I know it's a workshop, but the reason why I invited him, I wanted to invite him to the following meeting, but we need to have a decision on that percentage of the electricity that we would be purchasing before our next meeting, which is the day before our second meeting in May. So we need to kind of make a decision on this. It shouldn't take too long. He's just going to kind of explain where we're at, and we can have a short discussion on it. So anyway, I also attended the COGS Executive Committee meeting last week. And usually I don't really report on the Executive Committee meetings because we talk about these things in the general forum. It's really just a pass-through. But we do have one request that our board give consensus feedback by May 18th on the COG meeting process and what improvements could be made, if any. This is a question of procedure, opinions and ideas surrounding the meeting process, remote attendance, chat communication during meetings, etc., are what is being solicited. I guess that's about all I have. I guess we can talk about that next week as well, if you have any input at all. I mean, sometimes no input is input.
Well, I know you're there, and you've done it both in person and on the Zoom.
Yeah, I don't really have much other than I'd like to encourage everyone to attend the meetings that we do in person as much as possible. I understand the difficulties with the ongoing COVID crisis. We're in a low right now, but it doesn't mean we'll always be there. I also understand that some people have other obligations, and it's hard to make it to meetings in different places at different times. However, when you are in our position, networking is important, and seeing people before meetings and after meetings and having that little chit chat about topics, and it really goes a long way. And also just having a meeting where everyone's in the room and it's just an easier, smoother process.
I must say, having a room full of people is very different than having people up on the
Yeah,
screen.
and I mean, I'm a tech guy, and I do WebEx meetings all day, and I do, Zoom meetings and this and that. And I even say at work with my group that, if we can once in a while have one of these meetings in person, that would be awesome. Because you really do get disconnected, and you start to feel like those folks are almost not human because they're virtual, and it really does take away from what we are trying to do as a group. So, I mean, if you'd like that to be my input back to the
That's
executive
fine. I guess
committee,
we can talk about it at the work
Patty,
session.
do you have any
I think less of use.
comments?
No, as long as the remote option is still an option.
Yeah,
I agree with-
absolutely.
Because there's a lot of times extenuating circumstances when it's meeting time, and it'd be better to attend remotely than not attend
Yes.
at all. But I agree, it has been nice to get back in the room.
Yeah, I think the way I would put it is, while I'm not at all lobbying to get rid of the virtual attendance, whether it be WebEx or Zoom, or it should be encouraged to, as often as possible, go to your meetings in person, just so you can have that personal contact.
Well, did they express did the general forum express some kind of concern about the cost related to?
No, it's nothing about that.
It wasn't?
It's just about procedure, about how do we make this work better. It was
There is a cost component
suggestions
to it,
and
though, right?
that's not what they're really
It wasn't?
concerned about in this question. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, there's cost to everything, but they're not. That's not where they're going with this. I think they would like suggestions like, should we have the open chat? The sidebar chat. Should we shut that down and only have that to the group? Should we shut it down completely? Things like that. Where I don't really have a whole lot of. I don't know. personally, but as far as the chat, my example there, I don't like the chat. I think it should be disabled.
It's too
But-
disruptive.
Yeah, it is, but the problem is that those folks who are attending the meeting virtually, then how are their voices
So
heard?
they've been disabling it.
Yeah, so it's a kind of a gray area that really some lawyers.
Problem
need
is,
to
the room is
fish
really
out, so.
not big enough for all, if the whole crowd is there, and then you
You're talking
have
about general
guests, there's,
forum.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you have guests come in, there's not enough space to sort of give everybody a little bit of distance,
Yeah,
especially with the ongoing concerns, so,
but anywho, that's all I have.
all right, thank you. Patty?
My committees were all at the beginning of the month, so I did the reports on those at the last meeting. I did attend on Monday night, I attended the general forum meeting, and as Bob said, we talked about many interesting things, and I thought it was very informative. We talked about the Musser Gap to Valleylands project, how that was going, about the kickoff for the Whitehall Regional Park, and the solar power purchase agreement, and we also had an appreciation for Tom Zillow, who retired after, what was it, 32 years?
Yes,
Yeah.
32, 31?
Yes,
Something like that.
which he'll be missed.
Yeah, he's
And-
an outstanding employee in that
Yes.
department.
Absolutely. We can thank him for finally getting Interstate 80 and Interstate 99 connected properly, which is a colossal project going on right now. But
And a lot of other just business and information, but it was a good meeting on Monday night, so that's my report.
Good. Chuck? Anything you wanna add?
I'll just say that me and my crew, Jim and Scott, got the plows and the spreaders off the trucks, and Jim and I did go up Orchard Road there and took a look at where that proposed pipe was, or they thought it was, or whatever. I didn't call around and get a price on pipe yet, but I kinda threw together a number of in-house. I think it would take about $1,600 to put that pipe in-house. Put a 15-inch pipe in there where the marks were on the road, so. And we looked at a couple other drainage things that we're gonna try to take care of here before too long,
Excellent.
so.
Anything else? Ron?
Well, let's see, we had a Open Space Program 5-year Review Committee meeting on the 19th of April. There were a lot of issues, a lot of items discussed, not issues. Went through our charge. It's a very difficult review process to determine the viability of the program. You know, where do we go? Where do we recommend going in the future with it? There is some financial analysis that was completed, and there's still some coming to get a better idea of where we are financially and, you know, what options there are for alternative sources of open space preservation. So we're looking at those kinds of things as well. That's my report for committee meetings. I did want to make a comment, something that Corey, you and I discussed the other day, was the board had voted to basically not, or agree with the Center Region Planning Agency's recommendation with regard to the Meeks Lane pipe and pumping station. And so in essence, because it was not a unanimous vote to approve the change, the upsizing, it was therefore rejected.
No, your motion was sent to the UAJA.
Right.
They revised the Meeks Lane pump station and sent it back. It'll actually be going to Lucy Committee next week. Their motion still, or their recommendation is still adding the 645 EDUs. There is a CRPA recommendation that we approve or recommend, which is not having those 645 EDUs. So that'll actually be just a discussion item at that meeting. We're going to request that they revise the document to remove any reference to the 645 dwelling units outside the sewer service area.
Okay, but did we in effect say we don't approve the increasing capacity?
Yes, that was the motion at that meeting. And for that to, even if all the other 5 municipalities would approve that, if you rejected that, it would not pass.
Right. Do we have to go through that process again?
Yes, that'll actually, That'll go through to Lucy Committee, then it'll go to the CRPC the same night. If their recommendation is going to be revise the document, that's our recommendation to them anyway. Once that document comes back, it will go to general forum, which will then supply it out to the municipalities for their own individual resolution.
And then, we're gonna take the same, we have to.
You
vote
would
on
have
it
have
again.
to have another motion and actually adopt a resolution for whatever your recommendation would be with that point.
Okay, so this is like a different approach.
Well, this is the actual formal approach to adopt the
Okay.
special study.
This is the next step.
Yeah, so what you
All
did the last time was just let the UAJ know that you probably wouldn't approve
Okay.
the dwelling.
I thought we said we weren't gonna.
Yes, yeah, you did.
Okay, all right, that helps.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's all I have.
All right. I attended the planning commission meeting last week, and we were taking a look at, the planning commission was taking a look at the Halfmoon Acres LLC subdivision plan, and I think the PC recommended to turn it down unless we had a time extension, which we have received a time extension. Did you have something you wanted to add tonight, or you're just sitting there patiently suffering?
No, it's fine. Yeah, I'm here if you have any questions.
Okay, well, I see we have another set of drawings.
Yeah.
Is there major changes, minor? I mean, I'm
Well,
gonna
I
take a
just
look
got
at it.
them, so.
They just came in today at 3:30.
They just came in, okay. All right, well, then I won't question you. We'll take, our staff will take a competent look at it, see what they've got. All right, that's it for me for good and welfare. So, nobody has anything else? We'll go on to, supervisor reports. Good and welfare. Any supervisors have anything to add?
I don't have anything to add, but I just want to make sure we're not skipping over diversity. I think
That's on the agenda, is number 11.
Usually, the good and welfare is
Yeah.
just before
Well,
adjournment, so.
it's just where it is. I didn't
Yeah.
move it.
Do we have anyone to present the API that was being discussed? I guess not.
Heiss and Kim said she had to leave.
Yeah, so maybe she can present in the next meeting, or,
Or we can make an acknowledgement in the consent agenda too.
yeah,
Of
yeah, we
that.
can do that. I'm sure she'd like to.
It'll be on there. I
Yeah,
mean, it'll-
yeah, I'd appreciate it if that could be on. It was something that was discussed kind of last minute this week, and we didn't get organized with it, so.
Okay.
She was gonna try and come and wasn't able to make it, so.
All right, anything else? Anybody in the audience have anything else?
I wanted to make one comment. There has been a progress on the lease agreement or the agreement between the State College Little League and the township in terms of, in the form of a contract. I think Zach was putting the final touch, or he made final recommendations, and I think that's moving forward. Is that correct?
Yep, I can.
Hang on, Zach, you're gonna have to start over your cutout.
We need to wave a white flag or something when that goes out.
I don't know if he can see
A
any
couple
of us.
questions related to some of the items that are part of the field now that I think were placed there by the predecessor in interest to the State College Little League. So we're basically marking up the template that we had from 2015, and we'll provide that to the board with some suggested edits, just mostly, again, just for clarification purposes. What was started back in 2015 but was never finalized is actually, it's a pretty good working document, so. I hope to have something for you in the very near future.
Okay. Thanks, Zach.
Okay. There's,
I just have one thing in relation to this blip. Are we moving forward? Is there any movement on getting better service so that we don't have these?
Well, I think
Blip issues.
if we've already
That's
increased
been
our
done.
speed to 600,
That's what I was told, so I will
we need
be
to
contacting
explore some other
Comcast.
avenues.
Well, the 600 is in place already?
Correct.
Excuse me.
And we're still getting that?
I was looking up the Zoom specs on the Zoom webpage, and for under 25 people, they recommend 5 mega or 5 gig.
5 gig.
I'm sorry, 5 meg.
Yeah.
For groups of 50 and over, they recommend 8 meg. So I don't think it's an issue of The 400
That's
versus.
possible.
I think there's
I think
something
what
else
I-
going on.
Yeah, it's still,
Yeah, I
it's,
think
it's
it's
still
just
very well
some
could be
switching or something.
Comcast. What I think I need to do is come in here and do a speed test on them at the modem end. And then,
Did you run a speed test?
Not since it's been changed, no.
yeah,
Okay.
run a speed test, see if there's been any improvement. Because it's also possible that we could be paying for the 600 megabit service and not receiving it because the equipment on the poles can't handle it.
Well, that's what I've been
So
concerned
we need
about.
to, yeah, we need to run a
I'll
speed
reach
test,
out.
get a reading, and then contact Comcast about it and say, hey,
I'll
why are
reach
we
out
only
to our
getting
rep and I'll
X?
copy you on it.
All right, cool. Thank
We,
you.
we have one more question in the back here.
Are we still paying rent for Brothers, like for the office space there? Or when is that gonna stop?
As soon as we can get out of the contract.
If we can get out of the contract. The way
So
the
even though we're gonna spend the money to do all of this here, to put the people back in
Well,
here, we still have a contract for
That,
that.
that contract expires the end of December of this year. And it's gonna take a little while to get everything done,
Right,
and
I
get everybody
understand
over
that,
here,
definitely.
so.
If we could get out of it earlier, we would, after we're moved in. But there aren't provisions in the lease agreement for us to do that. It'd be up to the owner to allow us out without a buyout of the lease, which doesn't really make sense at this point. If we were 2 years into a 5-year lease, a buyout might make some sense, so. But it also gives
If I can,
us.
if I can jump in,
Go ahead, Zach.
Ron, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I just wanted to mention to, perhaps Amy, if you could send me a copy of that lease agreement, the existing agreement that you have, I can take a look at it. I don't think that's something I've seen yet, so probably should start to familiarize myself with it. So if you can send that over, that would be great.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Did you?
Oh, yeah,
it
instead
seemed
of
like you weren't
instead of
quite
just
done.
a speed test, can you set up a computer to do long-term logging to see how many dropouts during the day?
Yeah, I can probably do that.
Because I wonder if it's just on
I'll
our,
have to find a computer to do it with that I'm not using, but
do the people at home say that we're dropping out, or just we see them dropping out?
I think it's gone both ways. They say they.
Going
have
both
business
ways.
As well.
I'll just add that it's strange because we still see the video but not the audio. The video definitely takes more bandwidth,
Yeah.
so.
Well, that's the thing though, when it's
Yeah.
dumping, just from my experience with Zoom, when it starts to dump out, the audio goes first.
Right,
And then you'll see the person moving for a while and then they freeze up,
right.
you know, so,
There's some inconsistency in that
yeah, we're gonna have to figure out what's going on.
transmission.
If nobody has anything else, how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming in tonight.
The property,
I get the submittals.
the property,
Amy, is this my copy?